An Interstellar Council tried to control humans. Big mistake. The Chamber of Eternal Governance floated in the void between galaxies, a structure so massive it could be seen from neighboring star clusters. Here, the Interstellar Council convened, representatives from 200 civilized species gathering to discuss the newest problem in their perfectly ordered universe: humans. Zixstar of the Crystalline Collective adjusted his 7 optical sensors and cleared his vocalization chamber. Order. I call this emergency session to order. Around the circular chamber, beings of every conceivable form settled into their designated spaces. Some breathed methane, others lived in pools of liquid mercury, and a few existed as pure energy constrained within magnetic fields. But they all shared one thing: concern about the chaotic species from the small blue planet.
We have monitored Earth for 3,000 of their rotations, Zixstar continued. In that time, we have witnessed unprecedented technological acceleration. They have progressed from primitive combustion engines to quantum computing in less than 2 centuries. This is alarming. A murmur rippled through the assembly. The Velcrons vibrated with distress. The thought speakers broadcast waves of anxiety. Ambassador Thelmora of the Wisdom Spheres floated forward, her translucent form shimmering. The concern is not merely their technological progress, it is their nature. Humans are unpredictable, violent, and utterly irrational. They possess no hive mind, no collective consciousness, no proper hierarchy of logic.
They fight wars over ideologies, added General Krax of the Orden Empire, his armor plates clanking. They destroy their own habitat for temporary gain. They create art instead of efficiency algorithms. They are a threat to the galactic order we have maintained for 6 million years. Zixstar nodded. Precisely. Which is why we must act now, before they develop faster-than-light travel. I propose we implement Protocol 17, Controlled Development Restriction. The vote was unanimous. Within hours, the Council deployed their finest technology around Earth's solar system, invisible barriers that would prevent any human spacecraft from exceeding light speed, subconscious suggestion broadcasts to steer human scientists away from certain discoveries, and most importantly, the installation of overseers, advanced AI systems that would subtly manipulate human civilization toward peaceful stagnation. They called it the Guidance Initiative. Humans would be protected from themselves, and the galaxy would be protected from humans. Everyone would benefit from this benevolent control. They had no idea what they had just started. The first sign that something was wrong came 6 Earth months later. Dr. Sarah Chen sat in her laboratory at 3 in the morning, staring at readings that made no sense. She had been testing a new propulsion system, one that should have created a stable warp bubble. Instead, the experiment had failed spectacularly. But the failure was wrong. The math said it should have worked. The physics demanded it. Yet something was interfering with the quantum field at a fundamental level. "This is impossible," she muttered, running the simulation for the 47th time. "Unless someone is actively preventing this from working." She laughed at her own paranoia, but the thought stuck. Within weeks, scientists around the world began noticing similar anomalies, experiments that failed for no reason, breakthroughs that led nowhere. A colleague in Tokyo described it as hitting an invisible wall. A researcher in Geneva called it the universe saying no. The scientific community was baffled, but Sarah Chen was angry. If someone was interfering with human progress, she would find out who and how, and she would find a way to stop them. Meanwhile, in the Chamber of Eternal Governance, the Council congratulated themselves on a successful intervention. Human technological development had slowed by 17%. Wars had decreased, resource consumption was stabilizing. The Guidance Initiative was working exactly as planned. "Perhaps we underestimated our own wisdom," Zixstar mused. "The human problem appears to be resolving itself under our guidance." Ambassador Thelmora agreed. "They are settling into acceptable parameters.
In another century, we can fully integrate them into the galactic community as a controlled, harmless species. But General Krax had been studying the reports more carefully. There is something unusual in the data. Human scientific publications have decreased, yes, but their classified military research has increased by 43%. They are hiding something. Impossible, Zygstar dismissed. Our monitoring systems are perfect. We would detect any significant development. What the Council didn't understand was that they had made a critical error. They had tried to control humans using logic, assuming humans would respond predictably to subtle manipulation. They had forgotten that humans were the species that looked at a hostile universe and decided to punch back.
Sarah Chen's investigation had led her to a startling conclusion. The interference wasn't random. It followed patterns, responded to specific types of research. Someone or something was actively managing human development. She shared her findings with a small group of scientists, engineers, and yes, a few military officials. They called themselves the Breakthrough Project. Their mission, discover who was controlling humanity and break free. If there are barriers, we'll find them, Sarah told her team. And if we can find them, we can break them. They started small, testing the limits of what was being restricted. Quantum entanglement research seemed unaffected. Biological computing showed promise. And strangely, anything involving chaos theory or deliberately randomized processes seemed to slip past the control systems. They're using predictive algorithms, realized Dr. James Okonkwo, a mathematician on the team. They're anticipating what we'll do based on logical progression, but if we introduce deliberate randomness, controlled chaos, we can work around their predictions. It was the most human solution imaginable. If the universe won't let you go forward in a straight line, go sideways, backward, and loop around until you find a crack. The Council detected increased activity, but couldn't interpret it. Human research had become erratic, jumping between seemingly unrelated fields. One day they studied plant genetics, the next day gravity waves, then medieval poetry, then plasma physics. They have lost coherent direction, Ambassador Thelmora observed. This is further evidence they require our guidance. But General Krax wasn't convinced. He had studied human military history. He knew about strategies like misdirection, feints, and guerrilla warfare. I recommend we increase monitoring. This behavior is suspicious. His recommendation was voted down. The majority of the Council believed the situation was under control. 5 years after the guidance initiative began, the Breakthrough Project made their move. Using a deliberately chaotic approach that combined 17 different technologies in ways that made no logical sense, they created a device that shouldn't work according to any known physics. It was built from components designed by random number generators, assembled in an order determined by coin flips, and activated at a moment chosen by rolling dice. The Council's predictive systems never saw it coming. The device punched a hole through their invisible barrier. For 3.7 seconds, a human spacecraft achieved faster than light travel before the Council systems compensated and shut it down. But 3.7 seconds was enough. Enough to prove it was possible. Enough to detect the barrier. Enough to analyze the technology restricting them. And most importantly, enough to make humans absolutely furious. The news spread quickly, though most of Earth's population didn't understand the technical details. What they understood was simple. Someone had been controlling them. Someone had been holding humanity back. The global response was unanimous in a way that shocked political observers. Every nation, every faction, every group that normally couldn't agree on anything suddenly had a common cause. Nobody puts humanity in a cage. In the chamber of eternal governance, alarms screamed for the first time in 2 million years. Impossible. Zygstar's optical sensors dilated in shock. They detected the barrier. How did they detect the barrier? Their approach made no logical sense, reported the AI overseers. We could not predict their actions because their actions had no rational basis. They used randomness as a weapon. Ambassador Thelmora's form flickered with distress.
Randomness? But that's irrational. How can you weaponize irrationality? General Crack stood, his voice grave. Because we tried to control a species that doesn't think like us. I warned you. I told you to study their military history, their survival strategies. Humans don't solve problems by finding the optimal logical solution. They solve problems by trying everything until something works. The council quickly convened an emergency session. They had 3 options: remove the restrictions and risk humans spreading into the galaxy uncontrolled, increase the restrictions and risk open conflict, or attempt diplomatic contact to negotiate human development. They chose diplomacy, convinced they could reason with any intelligent species. They still didn't understand who they were dealing with. The first contact occurred above Earth's moon, a council ship decloaked, broadcasting messages of peace and cooperation in every human language. Greetings, people of Earth. We are the Interstellar Council, representatives of galactic civilization. We have been guiding your development for your own protection. We wish to discuss your integration into the wider cosmic community. The human response was not what they expected. You've been doing what? Came the reply from the newly formed Earth Defense Coalition. The Council explained their reasoning. Humans were too violent, too chaotic, too dangerous. The restrictions were for everyone's safety, including humanity's own. Surely humans could understand the logic? The human negotiator, Dr. Sarah Chen herself, listened to the entire explanation. Then she smiled, and the council's behavioral analysts suddenly felt very worried, because they had studied human expressions, and that particular smile never meant anything good. Let me make sure I understand, Sarah said. You've been secretly controlling our civilization, limiting our progress, manipulating our development, all without our knowledge or consent, because you decided you know what's best for us? Correct, Zykstar replied, relieved she understood. We have maintained galactic peace for millions of years through careful management of developing species. And how many of those species agreed to be managed? There was a pause. Agreement is not necessary when the logic is sound. Sarah's smile widened. Yeah, we're going to need you to turn off all your control systems immediately. That is not possible. Without guidance, your species will inevitably destroy itself or threaten others. That's our choice to make, not yours. Ambassador Thelmora attempted to reason with her. Dr. Chen, please understand, we have observed thousands of species. Those who develop too quickly without wisdom inevitably face catastrophic outcomes. We are trying to help you. By controlling us? By making our choices for us? By deciding we're not capable of governing ourselves? Sarah's voice hardened. You know what we call that on Earth? A lot of things, none of them good. But here's what you need to understand about humans. We would rather fail on our own terms than succeed on someone else's. The council was baffled. That is completely illogical. Yeah, we get that a lot. Turn off the controls. We cannot. It is for the greater good. Wrong answer. What happened next would be studied by xenoanthropologists for generations. Humanity went to war with the Interstellar Council. Not a conventional war with ships and weapons, though those were prepared. This was a war of spite, creativity, and sheer stubborn refusal to be controlled. Human scientists stopped trying to work around the restrictions and started trying to break them. Not carefully, not subtly, but with the kind of aggressive experimentation that Council observers genuinely frightened. They deliberately crashed quantum computers into the prediction algorithms. They broadcast random noise on every frequency to jam the subconscious suggestions. They created AI systems designed not to be efficient, but to be as unpredictable as possible. One team in Brazil created a spaceship powered by controlled explosions because if the Council was blocking elegant solutions, humans would use messy ones. Another group in Iceland designed a faster-than-light drive that technically didn't exceed light speed. It just punched a hole through space-time and fell through. The Council's systems didn't know how to restrict something that wasn't technically breaking the rules. They're insane, Ambassador Thelmora broadcast in distress. They're destabilizing local space-time just to prove a point. Yes, General Krax agreed. I tried to tell you. Humans don't surrender, they escalate. The Council's perfect systems began failing, not because of superior technology, but because they were designed to handle rational opponents. Humans kept doing things that made no sense, that violated every principle of logical development, that seemed designed purely to be difficult. Because they were.
If you're going to treat us like children, one human transmission declared, we're going to act like the most annoying children imaginable. The Council tried negotiation again. They offered technology, resources, a seat at the galactic table. All humans had to do was accept reasonable limitations on their expansion and development. The answer was always the same: no. After 2 years of increasing chaos, the Council faced a crisis. Their monitoring systems were overwhelmed, their predictive algorithms were useless, and worst of all, 3 other species had noticed what was happening and were asking uncomfortable questions about whether they were being controlled too. The carefully maintained galactic order was cracking, all because one species refused to be managed. In an emergency session, Zixstar finally admitted defeat. We cannot control them. Every restriction we impose, they find 10 ways around. Every system we deploy, they break with methods we cannot predict. And now they are teaching other species their techniques, them as equals, not subjects. We remove all controls and offer genuine cooperation, not management. But the chaos, the danger, is already here. Krax gestured at the displays showing human ships spreading throughout their solar system, using a dozen different impossible technologies. We can either have them as controlled enemies or chaotic allies. I know which I prefer. The vote was closer this time, but it passed. The Council sent one final message to Earth.
We acknowledge our error. All restrictions are removed. We invite humanity to join the galactic community as equals, if you will have us. Sarah Chen read the message surrounded by her team. They had won. Humanity was free. So, James asked, what do we tell them? Sarah thought about it, thought about the years of struggle, the anger, the fear that they might lose, thought about what this meant for humanity's future. Then she smiled, not the predatory smile from before, but something warmer. We tell them yes, but we also tell them that we're doing things our way. No more guidance, no more management. They want us in their club? Fine, but we're not changing who we are to fit their expectations. The reply was sent. Humanity accepted the invitation to join the Interstellar Council. As equals, as partners, as the chaotic, unpredictable, absolutely stubborn species that had looked at a 200-species alliance trying to control them and said not a chance.
In the years that followed, the galaxy changed. Humans brought their chaos, their creativity, their refusal to accept that something was impossible just because it was difficult. Other species started questioning old restrictions, exploring new possibilities. The Council's perfect order became something messier, but also more vibrant, more innovative, more alive. And whenever a new species was discovered, the Council had a new protocol. No more secret management, no more guidance without consent. They had learned their lesson. You don't control humans. You don't guide them. You don't manage them. You get out of their way and hold on tight, because they're going places, and they're taking the galaxy with them, whether it's ready or not. In the Chamber of Eternal Governance, now relocated to a more accessible location because humans insisted the old one was inconvenient, Zixstar addressed the assembly.
I call this session to order. First item. The human delegation has proposed replacing our predictive governance algorithms with what they call organized chaos theory. They claim it will make us more adaptable. Around the chamber, representatives from 200 civilized species waited to hear the details. And in the human section, Dr. Sarah Chen smiled. The galaxy was about to get a lot more interesting.